this meeting to order. Sorry, we need to give Mo, let's just give a minute for Mo to get us, we're good? Okay. Meeting is recorded and available to watch online on the Safford's YouTube channel. So we'll call the meeting to an order. I'll take roll call, and it looks like everyone is present. So we have a full quorum. Moving on to item number 3. If anyone has any comments on agenda items, this is now a call to the public to make a comment on agenda items. You'll have 3 minutes. We are going to have a call to the public when we get to the public hearing for the planned unit development. So if you want to hold off and wait until after that presentation, we can call you up then. Do we have any comments on any other agenda items? Okay, do we have any comments from the public on non-agenda items? Okay. All right, we'll move on to item number 4. This thing. Okay. Item number 4. Does anyone have any recommendations for changes on the minutes from the July 15th meeting, or a motion to accept the minutes as they are?
Move that we approve the minutes. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion passed. Okay, we're now going to close our regular meeting and reconvene into a public hearing. And the public hearing is for the planned unit development. So we're going to open for public comments. Anyone who would like to comment on agenda item 6.1, the cottages and villas on 14th, the planned unit development. So I'll call up, we have a couple of them here. We'll start with Ruth Ann Neff. If you could please approach the podium, introduce yourself, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Excuse me, because I am not a public speaker, so if I rattled, I am. I'm just here more questions and concerns about this project. I understand it was rezoned in January, February. And I was not aware at that time that it was rezoned. I live right on Relation Street. That's my front yard, looking at this property. Okay, give you a little bearing. I was not aware at the first one. I want to thank you for sending me a notice for this meeting, as well as many of my neighbors in the area that it'll affect. I have many concerns. The water that comes through, the way the ditches are built and not maintained. I understand they just last week maintained some of the ditches that are there conveniently, but not all of the ones that are in the easement. So we've been flooded many times. So if they build all this place in this area, I'm kind of worried where that water's going to go when it does have a big storm. The parking, the traffic, the easements, I'm not real sure from just this map exactly what the measurements are, but my understanding is that they're only going to have one driveway per townhouse. I'd like to know if the specifics is it the intention to sell these or to own them? I'm not sure what that is. The road quality in the area is not high quality, and I know they've tried to maintain it and keep it up, and I appreciate that. But the easements where the traffic and the emergency vehicles and stuff, are they going to be able to go in there? Because there was a project at one time that was behind me, and they ended up having to veto it and replace that project to a better place because it was not safe for these emergency vehicles. So that's another effect. And the other effect is, what's it going to do to the value of my house? Because I have a lot invested in that house. I'm starting to redo that house and putting more investment into it. Is that going to be a waste of my money? I know that I have talked to many neighbors. Unfortunately, one's out of town. One was in the ER today. One had a loss of family. So unfortunately, not all my neighbors could come here, but I know that they too oppose. So those are just more concerns and questions that I have that I don't have answered. So I just think that's a very dense population for a very small area, along with the traffic of the schools, and that's the safety as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for hearing me.
We will have a presentation from the applicant tonight, and I think you'll probably get a lot of your questions answered. So thank you for sharing your concerns. We'll move on now to John Rhodes.
Good evening, I'm John Rhodes, and I own the property directly to the west of this, the 20 acres. At the time when I split some of the property out, the city had me put an easement going back for ingress and egress. Now the city won't accept that property for ingress and egress. It's apparently too narrow. They say they can't have a cul-de-sac in there. There are certain builders that have worked in this town for years, have cul-de-sacs all over this town with little narrow roads going into it. And so I've lost sales on this property because they will not allow a cul-de-sac in there. Now, another thing, originally when we talked about this property, they were going to have two roads going in from east to west to ingress and egress this property. And the city had demanded that if I sell that property for an easement, that I have to have a road coming off of Bulldog Boulevard into it. Now, I had sold this property for $840,000 at one time, and the city, in my opinion, has devalued it because of this. I've got it for sale for $740,000 now, and I'll be lucky to get that out of it. And I don't think the city works with individuals and contractors in this town, just anybody. They work with certain people, and the rest of us can go fly a kite. And I just call it like it is. So that's it. Thank you. Other than that, if they don't put a road going from east to west to ingress my property, I'm against this. So thank you.
So just for clarification, Mr. Rhodes, for clarification, you're saying that you want to have access, like an easement from this property into yours?
Into which property?
Road.
Where would you want that?
Well, at one point there were going to be two of them.
But you're staying over on, you want it on the other side too, right? Okay. Next to 14.
Hmm. All right, thank you. We'll move on to Anita Schertz, I believe it is. Is that right?
Good evening, I'm Anita Schertz, and I have several questions that I'd like to talk about as far as this compaction of 16 acres. First of all, I, just out of curiosity, made a few calls today to see exactly, I live in Town and Country Estates. There's 73 homes on probably more than 16 acres. 73. Now they want to add, there's 78 units of townhomes along this edge. 2-story, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. 2-story townhomes. And along with that, they want 85 more units. Each one of these units is front yard 10 feet, backyard 10 feet, 1-car driveway, and 3 feet to your property line to the person's next door to you. Now I understand they want to change that to more townhouses. More townhouses. I don't know if they're going to take houses out. Is that what you're going to do? Where are you going to put the townhouses? I don't know. They didn't say. They wanted to rezone it for more townhouses. Okay, number one, the street width in this diagram, the streets are 30 feet. From what I understand, a fire truck cannot turn around in 30 feet. The only roads that are 40 feet are the exit and entrance roads. That's it. The next question I have is schools. There's school below, school across the street, there's traffic, and I was wondering why more people weren't asked or given information about how many people they want to put. If you put in 85 units times an average of 4 people on a 30-foot street that they tell you you can't park on, where are you going to park? Average family has 2 cars. If you have teenagers, who knows how many? My next question is, if you have this many people coming in and out of the project onto a busy street where there's a school, 2 schools in fact, the grade school, they line up all the way down almost from the school to Relation Street to pick up their kids. The high school gets out twice a day. They come in, they get to leave for lunch in their cars. They're running all over. Are the people that live on the other side of the high school aware of this? I don't know. They should be. Everybody on Relation Street and 14th Avenue should know what's going on. With this much traffic, are you willing to put a stoplight in? Is that going to solve it? Relation Street is not even wide enough to accommodate all of this new traffic. I don't understand. And we have a little tiny pink house right at the top of this, and they said they would put a block wall in. How high can you put a block wall in a subdivision? 6 feet? 7 feet? Okay, if you have a 2-story house right outside my back door, you're not covering that up with a block wall. I have a lot of questions, and I just don't want to take so much time because I think other people do too. But these are things we need to think about before we overpopulate a 16-acre area, my opinion. And I thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. I'll make a last call for comments from the public. Do we have any comments? Okay, at this time, we'll have a presentation from our director, Jamie Embeck. And when you are done with your presentation, I'd like to give the applicant an opportunity to present. And then I think a lot of the questions and concerns that have been raised tonight will be addressed. So if you want to go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. And also this evening, we do have several of our department heads in the audience. The chief is here, Lance Henry with Public Works, Michael Cook with Electric, our city engineer, Jace Elkins, so that if there are specific questions for those departments, they can be answered as well. I think a lot of them will be covered in the report. So this is a request for a public hearing and approval, denial, or referring the preliminary plan of development, planned unit development application back to the developer. The application has been submitted by Stratford Properties LLC. I do have a photo of the property up on the screen. The current zoning is R2. It was rezoned in March of 2024. City of Safford rezoning process was followed, including the required neighborhood meeting and public hearings. The purpose of this zoning district is to allow any use in the R110, R16, and R2A districts. And you'll notice there that the multifamily housing is allowed. The current land use is undeveloped and vacant. Surrounding land uses, Safford High School, public facilities is to the north, single-family homes, R110, and public facilities to the south. Safford Schools public facilities and undeveloped agricultural residential to the east, and undeveloped R16 single-family residential to the west. And the school superintendent did attend the rezoning neighborhood meetings, and he has been in contact with Mr. Polson, so they are working together on this development as well. Staff has worked with the applicant using the procedure defined in our code for large-scale developments. The applicant and their engineers attended a pre-development conference in January 2024. Preliminary plans and ideas were reviewed with the City of Safford staff. A preliminary plat application was submitted and the applicable fees paid on July 10th, 2024. And the gap between those two meetings is generally time to get the engineering done. Plans have been reviewed by all staff and the city attorney for completeness. The required information has been submitted, and staff sees no significant defects in the plans. City of Safford general plan states changes in housing demand is also changing because of major demographic shifts. These shifts include the aging of baby boomers, a decrease in household size, changes in family structure, and the fact that younger adults prefer urban mixed-use environments. National Center for Transit-Oriented Development provides that 2/3 of demand is still for large single-family dwellings, and 1/3 is for smaller housing choices, including apartments, townhomes, live-work, and bungalows. Although recent market trends indicate an increase of this type of housing, Safford's market isn't fully meeting this demand, and the increasing competition for units in denser, mixed-use neighborhoods paired with the current economic recession may increase the demand for these housing products. Chapter 17.72 gives you the purpose of large-scale development review and why we are having this public hearing tonight. And you'll notice on the next page that planned unit developments are highlighted. These public hearings and meetings are required to process these. The next section is the preliminary plan submittal requirements. And before these cases come to you as the commission, they are thoroughly reviewed by staff to make sure all of those required elements are included. The next section is requirements applying to all large-scale developments. If it is traversed by a proposed collector or arterial street, development shall be designed in accordance therewith. This property is not. All areas not covered by buildings or off-street parking spaces or driveways shall be landscaped and maintained in accordance with good landscape practices, and that landscape plan has been submitted. The plan must be prepared by a licensed architect, landscape architect, civil engineer, or surveyor. That has been complied with. And ownership of private open space reservations shall be established in a manner acceptable to the council and will be made part of the conditions of approval. That has been provided for in the conditions that you have in your packet, the homeowner association. And size of community facilities shall comply with city standards. This has no clubhouse. They will be having outdoor recreation that's shared. The design criteria, you'll notice in your packet, there are photos of the proposed products, including an interior layout for your review. It also includes a declaration of management policies and covenants, which is included for your review. And the development agreement we've consulted with our attorney, that will be completed once this project has moved to the final plat stage because it has development timelines that we are not sure of yet, depending on the outcome of this meeting and the council meetings. You'll notice that nothing can be constructed in the open space. And then number 6, any other conditions that the commission recommends and the council approves, so this will go to the council after you, that are reasonably necessary to carry this project through. The next session you'll see highlighted is the criteria that you shall make sure are included, that is consistent with the general plan. Development will constitute a living environment of sustained desirability and stability. Development will not produce a volume of traffic beyond the capacity of the surrounding street system. Requirements for utilities, off-street parking, traffic circulation, and other public requirements will be adequately met, and the design criteria of this title shall be adequately complied with. And the next session is you will tonight either approve these plans as submitted, deny them as submitted, or refer them back to the developer for one of the following reasons. A, been found to be inconsistent with this title or the general plan. B, city staff requires that certain specific changes be made. C, the plans or documents have not been completed. D, inadequate utility supply. E, any other circumstances which is sufficient enough to require that the plan not be approved. The next section are the planned unit development specific standards. You'll notice that the street width is reduced in these planned unit development subdivisions, and that the density is higher than in a normal R1, R2 zone. So you'll go through, it's section H, that they can be 30 feet in width. Setbacks are changed 15 feet from the periphery of the development on the outside edges. 2 off-street parking places are provided for each dwelling unit, maximum height. So those are some additional requirements and changes that can be issued for a planned unit development that aren't in the normal R2 zoning. Staff is recommending the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the preliminary plan of development, planned unit development for this parcel for the following reasons. It's consistent with the general plan for the city. The development will constitute a living environment of sustained desirability and stability. Development will not produce a volume of traffic beyond capacity of the surrounding street system. The requirements for utilities, off-street parking, traffic circulation, and other public requirements are adequately met, and this design shall be adequately complied with. And I've taken note of some of the questions that the audience had, and Madam Chair, I can answer some of those if you'd like before the applicant presents. So as far as the ditch maintenance, because of this project, we realized that the city of Safford has a maintenance easement. Jace found the documents with the county that we are responsible for part of that ditch on the southern end of the property. So also, any new runoff that is developed from this project cannot exceed what is currently being discharged from the project. So actually, the drainage will probably get better because we'll be maintaining that ditch. Lance has already had his crew out there cleaning it, and then the drainage has to be not increased from pre-development. Parking, traffic, and easements, Mr. Polson can answer those, but they meet all of the parking requirements for the city of Safford, and they do have a garage. The chief can answer if there are any law enforcement questions there. We do have a realtor in the audience this evening. If she would like to explain how property values are estimated in the Gila Valley, it's a little different than it is, say, in Phoenix. The comps are so far fewer that, say, for instance, I live by the airport. A comp for me might be in Montana Vista. So it takes into consideration more than your immediate area. Mr. Rhodes, I'd be happy to meet with him with his property concerns. And then The 16-acre dense development, we're having a lot of employers coming to us with the city. They're having people turn down jobs because there is no housing. So we've got to build some more housing. We've got to build some entry-level first home price housing, and this is Mr. Polson's solution for that. A 6-foot fence can be built on the property line. The school has talked to them about a fence between the school and Bulldog Boulevard in this development. The fire chief has reviewed this, and the turning radius won't matter for the fire truck because there are no cul-de-sacs. A stoplight, they'll be doing a new count probably now that school has started. They have had a professional engineer perform a traffic study and traffic analysis that will be updated. And then I'll let Mr. Polson give the detailed parking information. With that, I will stand for questions. Sit for questions.
I'll start with the traffic study. When is the traffic study planned to be completed?
Okay, so the initial, Madam Chair, the initial one has already been completed. And Mr. Polson could answer that time frame question if you'd like to hear
So
from
was
him.
it recently completed?
Yes.
Initial?
Yes. It was between January and July of 2024. And it's in your packet as well.
Okay, thank you.
How many residents, individual facilities will there be?
So the preliminary plat, and Mr. Polson, if you'd like to come up, you can give an average of your other properties, how many people live in them, but the number of units is on there. It's 165.
165.
Mhm. Yes.
165 units.
165 units, and then another question along with that. Is the plan to sell those or to rent?
And that would be a question for Mr. Polson.
We'll hold off for a minute before we get to the presentation from the applicant, if you don't mind, because I do have a couple more questions for you, Jamie.
Madam Chair,
Um,
Madam Chair, one moment. Just an FYI, because we're on recording and live streaming on YouTube, if you can please make sure to speak directly into the mic, because if not, the recording isn't picked up and
Okay.
anyone watching on YouTube can't hear.
Okay, so
Thank
we're
you.
just gonna hold off on applicant presentation for a minute so I can ask a couple questions about some city ordinances. The street width. So can you clarify what's the requirement for street width for the city ordinance?
Mr. Henry, would you like to give the rundown of that? Mr. Henry is our Public Works Director.
Okay,
Madam Chair and Commissioners, our standard street width it's a 50-foot right-of-way with 36 feet of asphalt. That's our normal residential street width. In a PUD, you can obviously modify that, narrow it up, but even in a PUD, the minimum is 30 feet on the street width.
okay, so this being a PUD, the minimum could be 30 feet
30 feet, yep.
of asphalt or 30 feet of right-of-way? Like, what's the asphalt gonna be?
It doesn't clarify that. It says 30-foot street. That's a question I had because the smallest cross-section in here is 30 feet back of curb to back of curb with a roll curb on each end. So if you took 2 feet off each side, that's really only 26 feet of asphalt. Our code reads 30-foot street width. It doesn't say pavement width, so I'm a little bit unclear on that. It's pretty narrow. We talked about that in the pre-development meeting, and as far as parking on the street, it would have to be limited, if not.
So it's possible that maybe the street could end up being 26 of pavement.
Asphalt, yes.
Asphalt.
That's what's in this plan on some of them is the narrowest ones are 15 foot back of curb to back of curb. And some of them are 18 back of curb to back of curb to center line. So the narrow ones are the ones going east and west through the middle. Those are 30 foot back of curb to back of curb, and then it would be 26 foot of asphalt according to the cross section. The 18 half section ones would be 36 foot back of curb to back curb, which would be more like, it'd be the width of Copper Canyon, basically. It'd be 31 to 32 feet of asphalt. That's the wider.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And And Director Embeck, you say that this PUD meets the minimum standard of 2 off-street parking?
Yes, Madam Chair, and they also have in their CCNRs that there will be no on-street parking allowed.
So the off-street parking is the garage
There's
or the driveway?
Yes, and you'll notice that near the townhomes, there are extra parking spots on the ends for guests. And Mr. Polson can give you the details of those plans.
Okay, and then what's the minimum requirement for a lot size in a PUD?
They have met those because of, they just need to meet the setbacks and they have a lot density that they have met. So you'll notice in the requirements, there's a limit of units per acre. And so they have met that. And then the street setbacks is 20 feet, 15 feet from the periphery of the development. They have to have 180 square feet of parking for each dwelling unit. So those are in those existing extra standards for planned unit developments. So they also have to have in one containing 35 or more dwelling units, they can have a retail development center. They are not doing that. They shall be limited to 10 units per acre for townhomes and 16 units per acre for condominiums. So it's not limited per lot size, it's limited per unit per acre.
So PUD, the guidelines is density,
Yes.
not lot size. Can you tell me what the average lot size is for this PUD?
Mr. Polson, do you have that? They're on the plans. They're
42 by 70 feet.
Yeah,
so
42 by 70. So they're big enough for the required setbacks around the 1,700 square foot home and the 2 on-site parking spaces.
Okay, I think that answers all my questions as far as like city requirements. Does anyone else have any questions for Director Embeck? Okay, we'll move on to our presentation from the applicant. Please introduce yourself. And we will give the applicant more than 3 minutes just because it's a lot of information.
Madam
to
Chair
go
and
through.
Commission members, it's great to be with you again. My name is Johnny Polson. As you may recall, when we met earlier this year, one of the big issues facing developers right now is inflation. As I presented in our earlier meeting, when we went for the rezone application, is we're running into problems of building affordable housing. As I've reached out and talked to realtors and city staff in Safford asking about some of these issues, one of the things that keeps being brought up is the city has a huge lack of affordable rental and for purchase properties for working families. This application and this project is trying to meet some of those needs, and I fully understand all of the concerns and worries of some of the neighbors surrounding this project, and I'm not trying to ignore or dispel any of their concerns as being not valid, but what we're trying to do is find kind of the happy medium solution here. And so one of the main issues is the cost of development. If you're going to develop a project or site such as this one, you're looking at probably $6 million at a minimum to develop this site. Those costs have to be spread out amongst all of the units. And so to make the housing affordable, we have to go for greater density. With the current R2 zoning, we could get 16 condominiums to the acre. That's higher density. That's more cars, more people. To me, that's just going to probably add to the problems. But from the developer standpoint, to make a viable project and to make it one that works, we need to be able to spread the cost out across as many units as we can. And so that's why we're trying for the 10 units to the acre for the townhomes. That will allow us to maybe get a development cost per lot of somewhere in the $30,000 range. Cost to build the structures have gone up 50% in just the last 4 years alone. And so we're trying to keep that in mind. As I've been told, we need to be projecting to bring to market homes that would be sold at somewhere around $275,000. And so in order for us to be able to meet those needs, we're needing to aim for properties that are roughly 1,300 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. And yes, these do have a single car garage and they have driveways that can accommodate 2 additional vehicles. And so that has been the aim, is trying to meet some of the demand here in Safford. We've also met with a couple of employees from Freeport-McMoran and some of their needs and what their employees are giving them as feedback. And that's kind of what they've indicated to us is something that the average employee of theirs who's making $75,000 a year could afford. So that's our aim in trying to bring something to market that can accommodate these parameters. There have been a few issues that have been brought up, and I'm going to try to address all of them. I know Jamie's done a wonderful job, I think, addressing many of them already previous to me. I think the maintenance of the drainage ditches and some of the stormwater concerns, as we develop the site, the stormwater concerns, I think, are going to be mitigated, and with the city maintaining the ditch, I think that also is going to take care of that issue. Traffic along 14th, that is one that I could understand people's concern. We have had traffic engineers look at this, and they provided a report saying that what we plan to build here would not overwhelm 14th Street as it is. I think the concern has been that when they did their traffic study, the school was not in session, and so their traffic counts were probably not as high as they would be today now that school is back in session. And that was just brought to my attention before this meeting, and that is something I can get the traffic engineers back out to look at and take traffic counts so that we have a better understanding of true traffic numbers in kind of the high flow hours. Mr. Rhodes brought up the issue of it being a through subdivision. If this project is private streets, my concern is whatever gets built to the east, or excuse me, to the west, that's just a lot of traffic also passing through this community, getting to his property for whatever is built there in the future. And we're real tight on some of the drainage calculations, and we're trying to get as many units as we can on the property, and we did previously have a couple of future stub outs to his property, and we have since taken those out in lieu of putting some more of the housing units into the project. The streets have been designed to accommodate fire vehicles, so the radiuses on the streets can allow for those trucks to make all the turns necessary within the community. I've gotten full support of the schools. They've in fact told me that they need more students and they would love to have a community that would provide more students for the school system. As far as property values go, typically there's always evaluation done with comparables, using comparables. I don't know if these small townhome projects would be compared to one of the neighbor's properties that she's looking to do improvements on, because they are not like properties. And so I don't think that it would have any impact or bearing on the value of her property. Like I said before, one of our issues here is the streets and how we can get the number of housing units without creating an issue for ourselves. Parking being probably one of the biggest, having developed Copper Canyon and knowing some of the issues with that subdivision and how testy parking has become. Our intent is to limit or excuse me, not even limit, but to prevent any on-street parking in this community using the association documents, so that all parking must be in some of the provided parking spaces that are at the at the end of the rows of units, at the ends of the streets, or in the driveways, or in the garages. And so we don't want to have any issues with parking in this community, and we feel that this design is one that it should accommodate for a very nice end result. Um, I think that was about everything. But again, the biggest issue for us is affordability. A cost today to build a 1,300 square foot home, we're looking at $175,000 in building costs. I would love to put those on a 6,000 square foot lot, but a lot of that size today would probably run about $70,000, land included, to develop. That would be the lot basis. When you put a structure at 175,000 on a lot of 70,000, and then on top of that, you have to tack on commissions, closing costs, sales taxes, and then leave some room for profit. It's just going to put the prices of housing up in the mid 300s, and I just don't think that is meeting the market demand here for what's needed.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
I do.
Go ahead.
On the parking issue, that would be enforced by the HOA?
Correct.
And will that be a local company, or will it be somebody from out of the area? Do you have plans for that yet?
The management company,
Yes.
I have not made any plans yet.
All right.
Initially, the builder manages the HOA until a certain number are sold, isn't that correct? So
Correct.
once the subdivision is, can't remember the exact number.
Well, the subdivisions get turned over to
Mhm.
a property management company when the development's complete. They
Yeah.
then begin maintenance of the community. But the developer controls
In the beginning stages, yeah.
the board of the association until typically around 75% build out.
So one issue that I believe is going to arise with parking that I'm curious how an HOA would handle it is there will be overflow parking from the schools. That already happens at the subdivisions that exist now. So I can foresee that there will be high school students parking in that subdivision. And I don't know how the HOA would be able to enforce that since it's not the homeowner that's inviting the public in, but I do see that being an issue. So how would that be handled?
I was not aware that that's an issue or something to be concerned about. So I don't have an answer for you.
Okay. I'm curious, so about the average lot size for this subdivision is 42 by 70. And I know there's not like a requirement for lot size. We're looking at density, but just in comparison, do you remember what the average lot size was at Copper Canyon?
Well, there was 45 wides by 100 deep.
So they were-
smallest,
they
4,500 square
Or
feet.
bigger,
Mhm.
bigger than this? Okay. Any other questions? Anyone have questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Mr.
Yes. How many there's going to be 165, is that correct?
Correct.
And how many of them are two-story?
I believe the number was 80.
81 or something like that?
Correct.
And of those, what's the difference in capacity or square footage between the single and the,
The two stories
Two-story.
are 1,500 square feet to 1,550 square feet. So they
Total.
are a couple hundred square feet larger of livable square footage. And they also include a 2-car garage in those units,
and then the others are 1,300?
around 1,300 square feet, give or take.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Right, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, Madam Chair. I believe that the parking spaces are longer than our standard as well. They're 21 feet.
think 22.
22 feet, and our standard is 18 feet to accommodate the larger trucks that are very common in this area.
You're talking about the driveway,
Yes, any parking spot that you'll see on this
like
drawing
the extra parking?
is longer than our requirement so that we can accommodate the larger trucks.
So these extra spots, are they designated for certain homes or are they just open?
I think the intent would be just leave them open.
Just to leave them open? And how many of those extra parking spaces are there? Do you know the
I believe
number?
there was 84 off the top of my head.
Okay. All righty, thank you for your presentation. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. We'll now reconvene and enter into a regular meeting. So we're moving on to item number 8, new business. The commission will now discuss the Bungalows subdivision. There is a request for us to deny or approve the revision to the preliminary plat. And this has been submitted by EH Investments.
Yes, Madam Chair. So in an odd turn of circumstances, the city of Safford has received 2 subdivision applications 2 days apart. So this is a different case with a different applicant. So this is a request for a preliminary plat to approve, deny, or hold over pending revision the application submitted by EH Investments. The commission may also request the developer host a neighborhood meeting subject to the provisions set forth in this section. So the subject properties, let me, B, would you share the map, please, ma'am? Sorry, go ahead. The subject properties are currently undeveloped. They are zoned R2 multiple family, and multifamily dwellings are allowed by right in this district, so they are already zoned compatibly with their use. The north use is a mix of undeveloped and residential uses in the R2 zone. South is undeveloped R2 zone. East is multifamily development in R2 zone, and the west is undeveloped within unincorporated Graham County. Staff has worked with the applicant using the procedure in section 16.8 subdivision procedures and requirements. Applicant and their engineers attended a pre-development conference on January 23rd, 2024. Preliminary plans and ideas were reviewed with the City of Safford staff. A preliminary plat application was submitted and the applicable fees paid on July 8th, 2024. Plans have been reviewed by all staff and the city attorney for completeness. The following information has been submitted as required. Staff sees no significant defects in the plans. No comment has been received after the property was posted. Letters were mailed to the neighbors and the notice was published in the newspaper. City of Safford is in need of housing of all types, and this project will help fill that need. You'll see next in your report what's the purpose and intent of that title. You'll see the information required on the preliminary plat, which staff went through line by line to make sure that they were on the plans. You'll see also that preliminary approval constitutes authorization for the subdivider to proceed with preparation of the final plat and the engineering plans and specifications for public improvements. Preliminary approval is based on the following terms. The basic conditions under which preliminary approval of the preliminary plat is granted will not be changed prior to the expiration date. Approval is valid for a period of 12 months from the date of commission action, which often the case that engineering documents take several months to prepare. Preliminary approval may, upon written application to the commission by the subdivider, be extended for an additional 12-month period if, in the opinion of the commission, there is no change in the city's regulations or in the conditions within or adjoining the preliminary plat that would warrant a revision in the design. Staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the preliminary plat application for parcels 103-02142 and 103-02143, as all of the objectives of this title have been met. If approved, a final plat application will be submitted and presented to the City Council for approval with additional information required. So this is their preliminary plat, and then they do the further engineering, and then it will go to the City Council for a final plat. With that, I will stand for questions.
Okay, so we don't have an applicant presentation for this because it's
We do, yes, ma'am.
preliminary?
He
Okay.
is here if you have questions for him.
I'm curious about the parking for this as well. So if you wouldn't mind coming up and introducing yourself.
All right, so yeah, my name is Mitchell Goodman, and I'm from the Gila Valley. I was born and raised here. Parents are from here, grandparents are from here. Um, so I'm a business owner here in the Gila Valley, and I'm also not a professional developer, but I have developed a project, and I've had just several people reach out to me and want to get involved in real estate and other things, and so I found this property and I saw that it wasn't developed, and so I figured this would be a perfect project. So yeah, kind of the motivation behind this was just to provide. I had 4 units and provided some good housing for some people, and just felt like there was a need for more housing. With the parking, kind of back to the previous is when we met back in January. They wanted them to be bigger for the bigger trucks. So our plan does accommodate for that. They're 9 feet by 20 feet, and there's plenty of parking per parcel on the plan.
So how many parking units, or parking spaces, how many parking spaces per unit? Because it looks like each strip is 4 units.
Yes,
And so how many parking spaces per unit, not per building?
I think it's at one.
1.5, it depends on the bedrooms of the units, and that calculation depends on how many bedrooms are in the units, and they did actually have more parking than was required.
Okay. So some of these are 1 bedroom, some are 2 bedrooms?
They're all 2 bed, 2 bath.
Oh, 2 bed,
Yeah.
okay.
About just under 1,000 square feet per unit.
Does anyone have any questions for our applicant?
I had a question. It's gone now, but on the side of it, there was something being built over there.
Yeah, so that's
Is that the golf thing or?
oh, that's that concrete structure. Like
Yeah, what is that?
it's supposed to be a triplex.
Who's doing that?
That's a separate company, Commissioner, Hancock, and so they have temporarily paused construction while they look for other funding sources. So that's a completely separate project, but it will be a triplex.
And I
development.
just wondered if that would be affected by this other.
It won't. They'll be adjacent, but they're both zoned for multifamily, and that would be a triplex development.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions on this property? Thank you for your presentation. All right, do we have a motion to either approve or deny the bungalow subdivision, the preliminary plat application?
Is this the one we just heard?
Yep, the bungalows off of 20th and 26th. Is that
Yes, Madam
correct?
Chair.
think we're thinking on it for a minute, it looks like.
I don't have any other questions on that one. I'd be willing to make a motion to approve as written.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the staff recommendation for the bungalow subdivision. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose? Okay, motion passed. All right, we'll now move on to new business, the cottages and villas on 14th, the planned unit development that we just heard the presentation on previously. This is for the preliminary plan of the planned unit development submitted by Stratford Properties. Does anyone have any discussion or points that they might want to make? No? My biggest concern is parking. I do like that there is additional parking space. It's good to see that they did plan for that. I'd be interested to see the updated traffic study, because I do think the timing of it probably maybe gave different results than what you're going to get when school is in session. I feel like we've had a traffic study done for that intersection within the last 10 years, if I remember right. And I had thought that there were some recommendations made in that traffic study, and I don't know if that is still on file anywhere or if that would even apply.
Yes, Madam Chair, the newest one that their engineer has provided would have updated data, and with that updated traffic count, it would be more effective and useful
Mhm.
than a previous study.
Do you know anything about one that was done within the last 10 years? No? Okay, I was thinking there was, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I think I would be really interested to see the updated traffic study that considers when school is in session. Mhm. So,
Madam
if
Chair?
you,
Madam Chair,
yes,
Mr. Polson, can you please go to the podium to
and
speak on that?
repeat that, okay?
It won't pick up on the recording, sorry. Thank you.
Thanks.
So reading the traffic study that was turned in by the engineers, they look at how many morning peak additional vehicles will be exiting the site and how many evening vehicles in the peak hours will be exiting the site. So it really has no bearing on how many vehicles they counted on the roadways when they did their study. They're able to analyze it based on the number of units within the project and whether or not it should accommodate based on the lanes that are there. And in their conclusion, they wrote
Can you tell me the page number of that, please?
page 12.
Page 12?
102 of our big packet. I just found it as
102.
well.
No, I just want to read, I did look at the conclusion. 102?
Yeah, of our packet.
I don't think so. Is
Right
it?
there.
Okay, yeah, it is. Go ahead. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So in it, where he says that it generates an additional 66 weekday morning and 85 weekday evening peak hour trips to the adjacent street system. This number of trips is not expected to have a significant impact on the surrounding roadway system. So, I mean, if necessary, I would be willing to talk to the engineers about doing another roadway count or traffic count. Um, It was very expensive, the one I already paid for. But I don't, again, I don't know that it's gonna change his conclusion when he actually gets traffic counts when goes
Well,
back out to do it in.
so it shows on page 99, average inbound 557, average outbound 557 with a total daily of 1,114. And then I guess that's did you say 66 additional
Mm-hmm.
for AM and 85 for PM? Could I ask our engineer a question? Are you familiar with traffic studies? Okay. Is there a certain number where, at what point do they decide whether or not a traffic light is needed? Is it based on, like, once we hit a certain number, that's what we need?
Yeah, it would be a total volume. And if you're talking an intersection like Relation and 14th, it would be a total traffic volume at that intersection.
So if you're going off of total traffic volume, you would have to have an accurate count of current volume, and then you add the additional and you get your total. So you really need an accurate current volume.
Yeah. But what
Is-
Mr. Polson is saying is that they analyzed this based on what was coming out of the subdivision and going into it. The traffic on the street, it would be in play if it was at the same AM peak hour and the same PM peak hour, which could happen if it's right when school's in session or drop off. So I did mention to him before that I think we need to look at those counts, especially the morning and the afternoon drop off times.
The only reason I'm asking is because when school's in session, there is a huge difference with AM for sure. PM, maybe not as much, but definitely AM. And I think there'll be a significant change to the total traffic count. I really believe there will be.
With two ingress egresses coming out of this property on the 14th, it will help that flow a little bit. And my main concern was, are we going to need a left turn or right turn into the property where they come off 14th and they kind of have a deceleration lane where they pull over and let 14th go past them? I don't think it will require that, but I was just kind of curious with the counts, because depending on the AM or PM traffic, a lot of the drop off for the schools is all on the east side of the road going towards Ruth Powell. These guys would be coming out on the west side of the road. So I don't see it being a big change by doing the traffic count, but
I guess it would depend on if you're exiting the subdivision, if you're going to go north or south.
exactly,
If you're going to go north, then there could be an impact.
could be.
So that's really hard to tell.
And this study didn't analyze 20th or 14th in relation either, which if more go south could have an impact on that. That would be a total different study.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's just my opinion. I do feel that a total count of current traffic could be significantly different than what was counted when school was not in session. My other concern is the off-site parking. I do believe there needs to be a plan to deal with people parking in there that don't live in the subdivision and are not guest of homeowners in the subdivision. I do know right now that there are high school students that park at the two subdivisions just north of the high school. So I just see that being an issue. I'm not saying that doesn't mean you shouldn't build, but I think there needs to be a plan to deal with it. Even though the plan does meet the density requirement, I also feel like the smaller lot sizes will cause a problem with parking. The lot sizes are smaller than what's at Copper Canyon, and when you drive through Copper Canyon, it is really hard to park in that subdivision. And even though there's the rule of no off-site parking, I just don't see how you enforce that. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to enforce. That's my 2 cents. I don't know if anybody else has anything else they want to add.
Madam Chair, I do have a question for the police chief. Would that be something that the HOA could individually handle and have those vehicles towed through the HOA and not the city of Safford?
I believe it would be up to what the provisions are in their CCRs, how they write those in, and when they write the contracts for new sales or developments, how they go about
I mean, are they considered public streets or private streets?
that. I'll defer to the developer. So that does make a difference between public and
Totally. Yeah, if they're private streets that could be enforced
through their HOA.
through the HOA.
Right.
There'd probably have to be some good signage up, I would feel like, to make people aware. But any other comments, guys, or concerns?
Yes, one of the people that spoke earlier mentioned that there wasn't an entrance and exit on 14th, but it looks like there's two of them. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner Hancock.
I think that was Mr. Rhodes.
Sorry, Mr. Rhodes had to leave. My name's Kim Gifford. I'm the broker for Keyhole Properties. I work very closely with John Rhodes and also with Mr. Paulson in working with this development. Mr. Rhodes' concern was when we saw the original plans that the street was going to go off of 14th all the way through this subdivision and would be able to access his land on the other side for future development. In seeing the new plan tonight, we saw that that's no longer going to happen and that they're using that for density. But I assured Mr. Rhodes that it still wouldn't be a problem. He still has ingress and egress off of Relation Street for his 20 acres that's there. And the way that it can be platted, you can still allow for emergency vehicles. You can still allow for access into any development that would go into his property. He was just concerned about being locked because we know we can't use Bulldog Boulevard as ingress and egress, but he does have a very large section that is on the Relation Street frontage. So that's something that we can talk to Mr. Rhodes about a little bit further. I think it was just an initial shock that he was surprised to see that the streets weren't going to be going all the way through anymore. But I can see the value in that not happening. And so, but it won't landlock him over there. He does have a section that affronts Relation Street.
Okay, well, I knew that, I thought he said something like that, and then I saw
Yeah.
the map here, and it's page 94, and
Mhm.
it does show that there are two, and I wanted to point that out to him.
Yes,
because,
yeah, I did. I
I didn't know
pointed that
how
out
else it was
over
gonna
there.
get, how else would they get in and out of there?
Yeah,
I don't think they're gonna
no,
do it down
I don't
Bulldog.
think he was being very clear when he talked about, he meant into his property on the west side.
I just wanted to clear
Yeah.
that up. Thank you.
I had a couple questions,
Go ahead.
more in reference to security as far as lighting in the area, especially at nighttime where there's open areas in the basin area where most likely kids would be playing at nighttime. And that's just the first part of my question. The second part will be for the chief.
Well, in terms of lighting, right now, we are showing that there are some street lights inside the community. We haven't done a full-fledged lighting plan on this project, but there's probably going to be the need for some downlighting, other things to make sure that the areas are well lit and people can travel and walk safely through some of the areas between the units and around the open spaces.
Okay. And then the second part of my question would be for the chief. Just in relation to background checks as far as Arizona law goes, I don't know if there's a if you can restrict certain individuals, such as registerable people that are within a certain amount of footage to our schools and whatnot. I- Will there be, I guess, will there be background checks restricting certain types of individuals with a criminal history, violent past, or registerable offenders? And if not, then will there be a plan in place for if an individual like that moves into this community, as far as posting for neighbors and stuff?
Are you talking about background checks for homeowners?
Correct.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, are you speaking directly in regards to sex offenders?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so a sex offender depends on the level at which they're registered, as well as the registration type they have. So basically, if we're required notification that if there is a sex offender that is prohibited from living within a certain foot distance from a school, then yes, that would be enforceable, and they wouldn't be allowed to live there. If there isn't such a requirement based on their release or their court paperwork, basically there will be still notification required for the neighborhood and surrounding areas. That's just required on all sex offender registration.
All right, thank you.
And that would happen like really at any subdivision
That
that was
happens,
close to school.
Madam Chair, that happens everywhere.
Yeah. There's always a notification that goes out.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay,
I have a question or a
go
comment.
ahead.
There was a comment about the lighting, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure it'll affect you, Chief, but it seemed in the past that Thatcher actually had something set up where the houses were required to have a light on the outside of the houses. They were looking to cut down on their the street lights, so I think there's a way to address those type of issues.
Yeah, we would intend to put coach lights on all of the units to illuminate some of the streets and sidewalks. But we would additionally do an actual engineered lighting plan for the community as well. We just haven't gotten to that point. That's typically something we do when we put together our development plans, our construction documents.
Good, thank you.
Hey, any other comments or questions? Okay, does anyone want to make a motion for either a recommendation or to deny the staff's recommendation?
What page was that recommendation on?
Recommendation action.
It's section 17.72.090, Madam Chair. It's on page 6
16.
of the
Oh,
planned
page
unit
6.
of the planned unit development staff report. And I can also read that aloud again, Madam Chair, if you would like.
It was on
6 or 7.
7 is, I think, I don't
Page,
remember if ours is
page
different.
16 of 158.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that the right one?
Is this it?
It's one of them, yes.
7? I think it's in here twice.
It was a little confusing,
Yeah.
folks, with all of the information.
You had 159 pages to sit
Yeah.
through, so.
So that's page 16 of 159. Thank you.
Madam Chair, would you like me to reread that, or would you like the clerk to share it on the screen?
Go ahead. You can do both. Go ahead and share it on the screen and reread it. Thank
Okay,
you.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, the Commission shall either approve, deny, or refer back to the developer for one of the following reasons. Development has been found to be inconsistent with the title or general plan. City staff requires that certain specific changes be made in the plans. The plans or documents have not been completed. Inadequate utility supply, or any other circumstance, issue, or reason which is significant enough to require that the plan not be approved at this time. And from the notes I've taken, the issues that have come up will be addressed before the final plat has been engineered.
Zembeck? I was looking at the commissioners, kind of looking up here. You read off the reasons why they could deny.
Yes.
On page 16, as Commissioner Ragland mentioned, this is what the staff recommendation is.
Yeah, the staff
Yes.
recommendation is on
Staff-
page 16, and then page 14 and 15 are reasons for approval and denial.
Comment? Has anything changed the staff's recommendations based on what we've heard tonight?
No, sir. No, Commissioner Hancock, Madam Chair. With a development of this nature and this size and it being one of the first within the city of Safford, we expect to have to keep adjusting as we go, and it will be presented for a preliminary plat and then a final plat before the council. And so staff, Mr. Henry can correct me if he feels differently, but staff feels that there is plenty of time to address the questions that were asked, and there were none that we were not anticipating.
I guess my question would then be to piggyback on that with all the department heads that are here. Same question. Did anything you hear tonight change the mind on the recommendation from the initial hearing? Since that's the case, I feel comfortable making a recommendation to approve as written for this subdivision.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the staff's recommendation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'd just like to comment,
And all those that with a nay, I'm going to be the one nay. It looks like, and I will make a comment. It has nothing to do with, the builder. I know that the quality of the homes built would be great. I know there's a lot of engineering plans that will be in place that will take care of a lot of the concerns tonight, but my biggest concern is the parking, the street width. It sounds like it could be 31 to 32 feet for the pavement. I think that's tiny. I think a 45 wide lot, I think is tiny. I think I see there being a lot of parking issues. So that's just my main reason is parking, even though it meets the density requirement. I just really feel like the lot sizes are going to be a problem. But anyways, so go ahead. If you,
yes, I just feel like that we do need the housing in the city of Safford. I think there's a real shortage of that from talking to neighbors and family members. And so I think that we do need to try to provide housing for the people that work at Freeport and other places. Having said that, I hope that we can give people the feeling that they can come to the planning and zoning or come to the staff and that we will listen to them and try to work with them and solve the issues. And it sounds to me like that's the direction that we're going. So I feel comfortable with that. Thank you.
yeah, I agree with you. There's definitely a need for housing and definitely a need for affordable housing. And I think that the applicant's done a great job in putting together a presentation. And I understand that there's cost to consider and the cost of building and cost of land. There's only so much you can do, but I would like to just see a little bit bigger lots. That's my only thing. Okay, anything else? Anybody? Okay. All right, we're gonna move on then. I think the next item is projects and updates. Is that right? 'Cause
Madam Chair, the next item would be the subdivision preliminary
Oh.
plat for the same development.
okay.
Yes, they have a double agenda item this evening because the difference between the previous subdivision is they just developed with our regular regulations. They did not want to do any planned unit developments. So this case has 2 items on your
Okay,
agenda.
so item number 3, I think my notes is missing that one.
So, yes, Madam Chair, this is a request for the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve, reject, or hold over pending revision the preliminary plat application submitted by Stratford Properties LLC. The commission may also request the developer host a public neighborhood meeting subject to the provisions set forth in this section. The applicant did hold a public neighborhood meeting during the rezoning process. This is the same parcel that we were just discussing. It does allow for multifamily dwellings. The rest of the information is the same. The information required on the public plat is listed, the preliminary plat is listed in your staff report. Staff did review all of those requirements with the applicant in meetings. Significance of the preliminary plat approval constitutes authorization for the subdivider to proceed with preparation of the final plat and the engineering plans and specifications for public improvements. Preliminary approval is based upon the following terms. The basic conditions under which the preliminary approval of the preliminary plat is granted will not be changed prior to the expiration date. And I will note that if Mr. Polson does have any changes to benefit any of the neighborhood comments or anything in that nature, we will call them out at the council meeting. Approval is valid for a period of 12 months from the date of commission action. Preliminary approval may, upon written application to the commission, be extended for an additional 12-month period. If there, in the opinion of the commission, there is no change in the city's regulations. Staff is recommending that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the preliminary plat application for parcel 101-20020C, as all of the objectives of this title have been met. If approved, a final plat application will be submitted and presented to the City Council for approval with additional information required in Section 16860. And I have, Madam Chair and Commissioners, taken detailed notes of all the public questions, and I will make sure to address all of those issues moving forward in the final plat process.
And what page are you on? 65. Thank you. Alrighty, so pretty much the subdivision is the same information we just reviewed.
Yes,
don't know
Madam
if-
Chair. If the planned unit development was not approved, and there would be a moot point to discuss the subdivision, it would have to be redesigned.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
No, I think we covered it in our.
Okay, I still have the same concerns with lot size and parking, but if anyone would like to make a motion.
I'll recommend that we approve staff's recommendation for Planning and Zoning Commission, approve the preliminary plat application for parcel 101-20020C as the objectives of this title have been met. If approved, a final plat application will be submitted and presented to City Council for final approval with additional information required.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone oppose? All right, thank you. All right, thank you, staff, for your input, and thank you, Mr. Polson, for your presentation. We will now move on to item number 9, projects and updates.
I have none, Madam Chair.
None?
This was plenty, thank you.
Trying to think, there's got to be something going on.
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty, I do have an announcement, if that's okay.
Yes,
I make it. Sorry for just the short notice, but today will be my last meeting. I am going to be resigning. I've enjoyed serving on the commission, but my time is very limited right now, and I need to let something go, and it's going to have to be this. So, but I have enjoyed serving with all of you, and I'm sure you will find a great replacement.
I don't think she can resign until she finds a substitute, right?
Yes, and thank you for your significant amount of service that you have committed to this commission. You've been the chairperson since I arrived, and your expertise has been very useful. So thank you for your service to the city of Safford. We
Yes.
very much
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate everyone here who serves and volunteers. I mean, it's somebody's got to do it, but anyways, it's kind of a thankless job, but I appreciate you guys and I appreciate your comments and your input. It's always good to get different perspectives from everybody, and I think that we do a good job of discussing the matter and bringing different points of view. So anyways, thank you.
I do appreciate the developers, and it's interesting that one of the things that they mentioned was one of the things that I've been shaking my head at. And I know I have someone at the county that works there, and they said they just can't find a place for people to live. So I appreciate you getting them a place to live, and but hopefully between the two of us here, we can make it good for everyone. Thank you.
Madam Chair, to add to your resignation, we will be posting tomorrow on social media and the
Okay.
city website that the position's open. We'll get with everybody how the shift will be. We'll get you applications and then the recommendation to council. So it might be a couple months of doing the work, but we
Yeah.
will get it.
It's hard to find people.
Thank you for serving,
Thank
for
you.
giving us the opportunity to serve with you.
And I think that you will probably need to, next meeting, vote for a new chairperson, most likely, right?
Yes,
that work?
I'll be discussing that with the city clerk as well. Mr. Patterson may fill in until we have a full commission again, and then we may hold a vote. That's generally how it would happen. We will elect a new vice chair. Mr. Patterson will assume your role until a full election can be held.
Okay. I'm very confident he'll do a great job.
Thanks.
Thank you, ladies.
All right. So next scheduled meeting is September 16th. And I think that's it. So we will now adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.